Hello, Ruby here. If you are new here, I'm a professional psychic, tarot reader, astrologer, priestess, and witch. And today we're going to be talking about getting started on the priestess path. This is for beginners, those who are just starting their journey into priestesshood. This video was requested by a viewer, so if you do have certain things you want me to talk about here, always feel free to let me know. You can leave it in the comments. I'll probably make a video about it. So getting started on the priestess path. Let's say that you watched my Signs That You're a Priestess video and you really resonated and connected in with it, but you don't quite know where to start. First things first, I would get clear about the face of the divine that is coming forward for you to work with. And sometimes this process is very easy for people. They're like, oh, I connected with Isis. I've always connected with Isis. And for some people, this can feel really confusing. Like, I think a deity is connecting in with me and I'm not sure and I don't know. And sometimes this comes from like a worthiness issue, feeling like there's no way a face of the divine would want to connect in with me. So for this, I say, if you have a lot of desire and passion for a face of the divine, or you just feel such like a deep curiosity and like longing to get to know a face of the divine, that's the face of the divine that wishes to come and work with you, okay? Like, we're never going to be like drawn in to work with Isis and feel connected with Isis, and like Isis wants nothing to do with us, okay? So your desire and your affinity and what's pulling you in and what interests you and a deity you desire to work with is a sign that that deity wants to work with you. Sometimes I think in these videos, like around how to connect with a deity, you can hear people saying like, oh, you'll get all these signs and you'll get all these synchronicities, and like maybe, but maybe not. Because there are certain deities that want to teach you to trust your inner knowing and your inner instinct. So if you're supposed to work with like Hecate, for example, maybe you will hear dogs barking. Like maybe you will see keys everywhere, and that is a sign that she's calling forward to you. But maybe you'll just have this like inner knowing that like, okay, I feel like it's time to work with Hecate. And both of those phenomenons are like equally valid. Okay? Your inner experience and your inner like knowing is just as valid as external signs. Okay? So once you like really honed in on the face of deity that you are feeling is calling you in to work with in the role of priestess, then you'll start your practice. And it might be more than one. Like, there are multiple deities that I work with in the role of priestess. I work with Mary Magdalene. I work with Isis. I've channeled messages for Kali. I work with Hecate. I recently channeled a message from Hecate. And when I'm channeling a message from the divine, I'm in the role of priestess. Okay. So it might be more than one, but if you're starting out, just focus in on one. Because when you begin your practice as a priestess with the face of the divine, you're really just getting to know that deity's voice and their energy. So if you are just starting on the priestess path and you're like, okay, I want to work with like Hecate and Aphrodite and like Persephone and Mary Magdalene, like that's going to be too jumbled. So just pick one, okay? So let's say you're really feeling called to work with Isis. So then what you're going to do is you're going to start researching Isis. You're going to buy books about Isis. You're going to learn about Isis. You're going to get a journal that is just your journal between you and Isis. And then once you feel like you have learned like enough about that deity to do this justice, and don't overthink this, like be intuitively led as much as you're like led by like reason and intellect. So do your, like your masculine stuff, like buy the book, research online, do all of that, because that shows the deity that you're serious about working with them, that you're taking this seriously. But then also, like, the priestesshood is all about feeling into your feminine. And this will be easier for some people than others. So also just like feel in to like what you're supposed to be doing, or how you are feeling led, or how you feel that Isis is calling out to you. But once you've like, done some of your research, then you're going to build an altar for that face of the divine. And this doesn't have to be super spectacular and grand. If there's just a dresser lying around, like you can just put a statue of that deity or a picture of that deity, and maybe just like a few crystals or a few just like objects that really connect you in with that face of the divine. So, right now I have Hecate on my reading altar, and then I have some black tourmaline next to her and some labradorite, because those are two crystals that I connect in with for Hecate. I have a key. So that's just like a little Hecate portion of my reading altar right here. So it's not super significant, like extravagant, but it's significant. I think faster than I talk, and it's just going to be an issue when I'm making videos forever. And then from there, you're going to have a little daily practice where you connect in with that energy at your altar. So these are some things you can do in your altar space when you're connecting in with that energy. So if like you've picked Isis, I know I'm jumping around with deities, but if you're feeling really connected in with Isis, maybe you get the Isis Oracle by Alana Fairchild. You have a picture or figure of Isis at your altar. And then, you're going to spend some time just like meditating, visualizing, doing journeying work with Isis. And then I always like having a deck that's connected to that deity. So, you'll draw your cards for Isis. You'll journal about what's coming through from Isis. And I think that's all you need to do for a while. Like I would say do that practice for 3 to 6 months when you're just getting to know a deity. Because that's how you're building the relationship. You're learning what the deity feels like, how they speak, what their energy is like. What's up, little one? Okay. And then from there, you build the relationship. And then once you are familiar with the voice of that deity, then your priestess like path will be spirit-led and deity-led. Okay? Another thing that you can do is hone in which chakras are strongest for you. And that might influence how you get messages, receive messages, or how you are feeling called to work with that deity. So if you are really strong in your sacral chakra, maybe you will work with that deity with like sex magic or your own creative practice. If you're really open in your heart chakra, you'll probably receive messages within your heart. You'll probably like be on a path of being heart-led. You'll just like know things. You'll transmit the energy of that goddess through like heart chakra activities. If it's like your third eye, you'll probably just like be very clairvoyant and receive messages from deity that way. You might work with the energy of that deity, honor that deity by being a psychic or a channel. If your crown chakra is the strongest, you'll probably receive like visions and dreams from that deity. So you get the gist. And there's different chakras that might come forward for different deities that you work with. Like I find that Isis is really connected with my throat chakra, communication. So I do a lot of sound healing with Isis. And like Isis gave me the gift of astrology, which is one of the ways in which I think and like communicate. And like that's associated with my truth. And when I'm working with like a goddess like Hecate feels really connected to my solar plexus. Like Hecate wants to teach me to be sovereign and empowered and to use my will. And that will be different for every person. Like how I just explained it for me, that might not be how those energies show up for you in your body and in your field. So that's pretty much it. The only thing that I would recommend is like doing regular offering work where you're offering to the deity. You know, everything that I just spoke about is really the deity feeding you. And it's important to learn how to let divinity and deity feed you. And one of the ways that I can be distorted is I can just give a lot to deity and forget to receive. So in my last tarot reading with my tarot reader, we talked a lot about how I need to let deity feed me and I need to receive from deity again. Like this is the period of my time where I'm doing that. So I'm doing that more and I'm doing less like offering and devotional work. But it's important to have both. It's a relationship. So we don't want to always just be taking, and we also don't want to just like always be giving and never receiving. So if you're interested in how to give offerings to deity, I have a whole video of that on my channel. It's probably called How to Give Offerings to Deity. Okay? So watch that. But it's like, you know, do whatever in your means. If you can't afford physical gifts, which like, you know, for Hecate, I like onions, garlic. I'll just like drop some essential oil incense on like the statue at my altar. For Isis, for whatever, I do like bread a lot. I give Isis a lot of like bread and honey. I'll burn myrrh for Isis. So like the offerings we give to deity like don't need to break the bank, though I will say putting a lot of time and intention into offerings. It's not something I do every day, but it's something I definitely feel a return on investment when I do. And some of that return on investment is just feeling a deep connection in that relationship. It's not like, oh, I'm like being given all these material things because I, you know, gave Hecate like a hella good offering, which, you know, it can work that way. But it can also be like, oh, like this, the intimacy and the closeness and like the umbilical cord between us just feels so sturdy when I give it that way to deity. I don't want to say too much because I feel such a big part of this path is being spirit-led, but I do think this is a great place to start. And I wish there had been videos like this on YouTube when I first started out, because I was like looking for information on like how to be a priestess and priestesshood, and everything that I came across was like so poetic. Like the priestess is a channel for the divine feminine wisdom. I'm like, yeah, that's great, but like how? So this will give you at least some steps on the hows of the beginning. And if you want more clarity on anything I just talked about, let me know, okay? So that's it for today. But as always, I'm sending you love, wishing you well, and Sun Ra is sending you love and wishing you well too. That's the name of my kitty. Bye, y'all.